the as per usual. All right, so this class is the Sacrum TLC class. And the idea with this practice is to kind of bring our focus into our hips, and especially into the kind of the ball and socket joint of the hip. So we'll think about the internal and external rotation of the long leg bone, the femur bone, articulating with the pelvis. And as we move this, we'll tune into the SI joints. So if our sacrum, the sort of triangle bone towards the bottom of your spine, connects onto the two sides of your pelvis, and the two joints that connect on kind of the down slopes of the triangle are the SI joints or sacroiliac joints. So we'll think about mobilizing there today and kind of tune in, bring our attention there. Sacroiliac joint is not one that has a lot of movement or a lot of play, so it's subtle, and that means that it can also be a mindfulness practice for us to tune into the hips and see how that's feeling. So we can start out on our backs. And actually, I'm gonna onto our backs. You can keep your feet on the floor and your knees bent. And we'll spend a moment here breathing into our bellies. We just let our spine and our hips and our pelvis kind of sink into the mat. So with every inhale, letting your belly expand upward. Exhale, letting your belly fall gently. And then at the end of the exhale, drawing in slightly on your navel just to make room for the next breath. Inhaling, belly expands. Exhale, drawing the belly in. Take several breaths here at your own pace. Tune in to your own breath, really coming into the room. Welcome to close your eyes if you like. Bring a bit of movement into this breath. So as we inhale, we'll tilt the tailbone down towards the ground, expand the belly up, and so that we have a little bit of arching away from the mat. And then as we exhale, we'll scoop the belly, tuck the tailbone up towards the ceiling, and flatten it back down on the mat. Still breathing at your own pace. Welcome to close your eyes here. Finding a really subtle, gentle rolling with each breath. Once you come in towards your next exhale, you can double check the position of your feet. So feet are about hip width distance apart, and heels are close enough that you could just tickle them with your fingers. We'll come into this rolling, moving breath, and then on an exhale, pressing down through the feet and coming up with the hips any amount. Starting to bring a little lift, leading with the tailbone, coming up towards the ceiling. Inhaling, belly expanding. Exhaling, scooping the belly, tucking the tailbone up. Welcome to stay here, or
if you like, to keep your hips up for several breaths. You can bring your hands alongside your body. And if you're used to binding your hands underneath you, feel free. Or you can keep rolling with your breath. If you're up in Setuasana, bridge pose, take one more deep breath in here. And then we'll exhale, rolling all the way back down. From here, we can bring our knees in and give them a little squeeze. Give them a squeeze side to side, little rock here. Hold onto the right leg and let the left leg come down to the ground. Squeezing the right knee in alongside the ribs. Letting both hips be aligned here. Both hips are level. Take a deep breath in here, and then with our left hand, start to draw the right knee across the body. As we do that, we can reach out with our right arm, anchor the right shoulder, both shoulders down to the floor. You can find a gentle twist here. For most of us, this will be a slight internal rotation of the right femur. Take one more deep breath in here. Bring our right knee back for one more squeeze. You can bring both knees in. Take a little rock side to side. You can hold on to the left knee, let the right knee come down straight. Leveling out the hips. The left knee come alongside the rib cage. Out to the side. So for most of us, this will be a slight external rotation in the left femur bone. Take one more deep breath in here, and then with our right hand on left knee, we can start to draw the knee over. Keeping both shoulders heavy and anchored. Bringing the gaze over towards the left. The knee touches the floor, maybe the foot does, but that's not a requirement. If your leg is hanging and it feels uncomfortable, you could always bring a block or some other prop. One more deep breath in here. Roll onto our back. Bring our left knee in for one more squeeze. We'll bring both knees up. We'll take a little rock side to side, and then we'll bring our hands to our knees, and we'll do the smile massage. So the two little dimples in your back are the posterior superior iliac spine, so little connections on your pelvis where your muscles can come in and attach. And we're gonna roll over onto one side, bring our knees in slightly, and making kind of a U shape with our knees away from us, and then in as we rock to the other side. So we're kind of tracing out a smile along the triangle that makes our sacrum. A bit of a massage here. It's not the meatiest part of the body. There's not big muscles running over the sacrum, but it is a spot where lots of muscles attach. And there's a lot of fascia there, so it's still nice to have a little massage here to Bring in, welcome some juiciness to the area. From here, we can bring our hands onto our shins and maybe start to give some gentle rocking so that we can come up to seated. And then we can come into a tabletop position. So we'll take a little bit of cat paws to start. Drawing up on one hand, peeling the fingers and the palm off the mat. Just to warm up. Fingers, hands, wrists. It feels like enough. You can spread your fingers out. Palms underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. And from here, we'll take cat and cow. So inhale, tailbone draws up, chin draws up.
Exhale, chin draws in, tail coming under, back rising up towards the sky.
Look at the speed of your own breath here. Inhaling to look up. Exhaling.
Draw the gaze down.
Keep this gentle, easy, slow.
Tuning into how this feels in your spine and especially how it feels in your hips. From here, we'll practice the Surya Churya, the sunbird pose. We can spread our fingers out again, hands underneath the shoulders. From here, we'll bring the right foot, right leg out behind us. And want to bring our toes down towards the floor. An option here, if you have a block nearby, is to place the block over the back of your pelvis, over your sacrum, and this can provide kind of a tactile reminder of whether your hips are level or not. So for example, if I open out to the side, drop the block, and even before it drops, it can help to sort of feel the tipping or kind of the friction of the block. So reaching back through the right heel, toes are pointed down towards the ground. We're trying to level the hips as much as possible. And then from here, we can turn our toes, turn our knees, turn the whole leg in the socket. So we're pointing our toes not down at the ground anymore, but out to the side. And then notice how this tends to make your, wants to open your hips out to the side. Kind of closing on to the SI joints. And then if we do the opposite, turn our toes towards the inside, towards the center of our body. Feel almost a broadening or an opening, so starting to open the SI joint. Move through that a few times, twisting out, twisting in. Noticing how that feels. That feels like enough. You can come down. If this feels like a lot on your hands, you can always bring elbows onto a block and you'd still get the same feeling in your leg, which is what we're looking for. Bring it over to the left side. Shining energy through the left heel, drawing up on the abdomen. Checking in with our block, so we have level, stable hips. We can start to move our toes, rotate the whole leg, whole femur bone, out to the side. Bring it back towards the inside. Really tuning into how that feels in the SI joints. Along the borders of the sacrum. Move through that. Notice what you notice.
can come back, release our block, give a bit of a shake to our hands. And there's one more variation that's a little bit different that we can give a try. This one is, instead of lifting our leg right back, we'll keep our knee bent and we'll open out to the side. So yeah, so you can see that here. Opening out to the side. And my knee isn't going to lift very high because I want to make sure that I keep my hips level. Move through this. Don't need to stay up for 10 breaths, but notice that and give it a try on the other side. So how high does your knee come before your hips start to open? And this gives us a clue about where we get our mobility from. It's not only from the rotation of the femur bone in the hip socket, but it's also the our articulation of our pelvis and also our back that helps contribute to that. So we have, we're done with the blocks for the moment, so you can put them on the front of your mat.
We'll take a little acknowledgement of the mat before we move into standing practice. So come into child's pose, letting your hips be heavy, letting your head waterfall forward, down onto the mat. Taking a few breaths here. Start to find our way up again.
Mindfully finding your tabletop, spreading your fingers all the way out. And then we can tuck our toes underneath.
Move up into a downward dog. Letting the head be heavy. Letting the sitting bones shine up towards the sky. Letting the knees be as bent as they need to be. Taking a few breaths here, and then we can bend our knees quite deeply, bring our gaze up in between our hands, and start to take some steps. So our feet land right up behind our hands. Bend your knees deeply here, this forward fold, Uttanasana. Letting your head be heavy. Letting your upper body feel supported by your thighs. Take a peek at your feet. We'll spread our toes out. Ground down to the feet, charge up through the leg. Inhale as we come all the way up. Arms coming up. And then exhale. Palms shining forward, finding our Tadasana here. So we'll take a moment to really tune into Tadasana. You can check that your feet are parallel with one another, so your middle toes are parallel. Spread your toes out. Heels are about sitting bone distance apart. We'll pull up on our kneecaps, so firming the thighs. Press down through both feet equally, growing up tall through the spine. Rolling the shoulders back, palm facing forward. Length through the back of the neck, so the chin is humble. So we found a bunch of cues here in our Tadasana, mountain pose. We haven't yet tuned into the feet, so let's take an opportunity for that. Keeping the feet parallel, so not moving them on the mat. We're going to apply a little pressure, let's start by drawing the heels in slightly, so the feet don't move. We're just applying a bit of an outward force.
So the pinky toes will start to spread, feel like they're spreading apart from one another. And then you can relax that. And then try it again, tuning into your hips. Where do you notice that? What do you feel? So you might feel, because this is causing an external rotation in the hip joint, that we have a bit of a like a squeezing through the SI. So the glutes might start to light up and activate. Relax that. Now we'll try the opposite. So pushing out slightly on the heels. And then relax that. And then try it again, really tuning into the hips. So you can oscillate between squeezing or not, pressing out on your heels or not. You have to feel the difference here. It might be subtle, but you might feel that as your heels start to draw out, there's a sense of spaciousness across the back of the pelvis, and maybe a feeling like the tailbone can drop down more. You can go back to toes, pinky toes coming out, heels drawing in, and then heels drawing out. And then come to even Samasthiti, or an even Tadasana pose, with neutral feet, neutral action in your hips. So something to notice. Coming back to the top of your mat, if you weren't there already, we'll do some Ardha Surya Namaskar, or half sun salutations. So we'll spread out our feet, hip distance apart, parallel, and then we'll inhale, arms coming all the way up, and we'll take a moment in this Urdhva Namaskar, the upward salutation. And from here we might feel that if our gaze is up and we have a bit of a back bend, that have a tendency to be a little crunchy in the low back. So from that, think about spreading out through your heels and see if that gives you a little more length, a little more space through your low back. Deep breath in here. Exhale, swan diving forward over bent knees. Letting the upper body rest on the thighs. Head is coming down. Bring our palms to the front of our shins. Inhale to look forward, long back. Exhale, going all the way down. Head is relaxed. Charge down through the feet. Charge up through the legs. Inhale, arms coming all the way up. Urdhva Namaskar, the upward salutation. And from here, finding a slight back bend and finding space through the lower part of the back by pressing out slightly in the heels. Deep breath in here. Exhale, swan diving forward again. Bent knees, heavy head. Upper body resting. Hands come to the front of the shins, and the next inhale, coming up, gaze is forward, long back, and then exhale, coming down into Uttanasana, forward fold. Heavy head. Ground down through both feet. Feet are parallel. Charge up through the legs. Inhale, coming all the way up. And then we'll exhale, bring our hands to heart center. We'll bring our hands to our hips, and we'll take a step back to one side of our, facing the long edge of our mat, so turning out one way. Feet might start parallel, but we're gonna toe in just slightly. So as we toe in, pressing, this feeling of pressing out on our heels, it gives us a little more space through our SI joints. So see if you can feel that. Prasarita Padottanasana, we're going to come forward into the wide-legged forward fold. Could keep your hands on your hips, or if you like, karate chop your hands into your hip creases and use that energy to drive the hips back, long back coming forward, bending the knees, folding over top of your hands, and then once you're folded over,
You can bring your hands out to grasp your calves, your feet, touch the ground or touch blocks. Taking a moment here to press out onto the outside edges of the feet. So want to make sure you have good friction on your mat. You're not in a slippery situation to do this. Thinking about pressing out slightly through your heels. Maybe from that sense of space across the back of the pelvis, allowing the spine to grow down even more. Start to bring the hands to the hips, bend into the knees.
Inhale, coming up with a straight back. And then option to turn the other direction on your mat, or since you're probably facing the screen, this is a good way to start. We'll keep our toes where they are and bring our heels in. So from here, we'll take the temple pose or the goddess pose, sometimes also called fierce angle pose. So we've got our toes facing out this time. Our knees are also facing out, and so this is an external rotation. So from here, hands can come to the hips or out to the thighs. And we're sinking the hips down, and also want to keep the shoulders up over the hips so we're not bending forward too much. From here, it's kind of an active pulling out of the knees. So our glutes will be doing a lot of work here to work in this external rotation. So see how that feels in your SI joints across your hips. Anytime you need to, you can always come up, take a breath, relax back into it. Generating a bit of heat in this posture, so great to take a break for a breath whenever you need. From here, we'll take a deep breath in, we'll rise up, we'll bring our hands back onto our hips, we'll turn to face the front of our mat, we'll step all the way forward, and from here we'll get the chance to try some Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2, which has some internal and external rotation. So starting with hands on the hips, we'll step back left leg, and then open the hips out wide, so straight back leg, pressing out into the outside edge of the back leg, and then bending the front knee, and letting the knee shine out over the middle toe. So could take the arms here, or since we're focusing a lot on the hips today, you could keep your hands in your hips as well. So from here, we're pressing out quite strongly into the outside edge of the back foot. And this creates a bit of an internal rotation of this straight back leg. Because we're trying to shine our kneecap over our middle toe and not let it sink in, there's an external rotation of the front knee. Pressing down firmly into both feet. Feeling across the back of your pelvis. This is like opening one hip and closing the other. Take a deep breath in here. And then we can exhale, straighten the front leg. We'll turn towards the back of the mat. So our right leg is now the back leg, or the trading over. Whole outside edge of our new back foot, pressing into the mat. This strong straight leg, starting to roll the hip in slightly. And then as we bend into our front knee, our new front knee, checking the alignment of the knee over the middle toe. Arms are an option here. We have the hands on the hips. We're really tuning into how that feels across the back of the pelvis, rotating one hip in, maybe opening that side of the pelvis. And then because we're opening this leg out in external rotation, activating the glutes, kind of squeezing a little bit on that SI joint. Take one more deep breath in here. And then we can exhale, heel toe all the way in. And then we can come back to the front of our mat. We'll take a deep breath in, arms coming all the way up. And finding a slight back bend here, maybe a slight pressing out of the heels, lengthening. And then we'll exhale, swan dive forward.
Over bent knees, head is heavy. Letting the knees be bent. We'll bring our hands to the front of our shins.
Inhale, gaze comes forward, long back.
Exhale, relaxing over the knees again. And we'll ground down through the feet, charge up through the legs.
Inhale, coming all the way up. And then we'll exhale, hands down through heart center. And we can take the hands to hips again. This next one we'll do is Parsvo. Actually, let's do pyramid pose next. So it may be handy to have blocks near the front of your mat because it might be nicer to hold on to the blocks rather than bring your hands all the way to the floor. So bring your hands on your hips. We'll take a moderate step back with the left foot, and we'll press the outside edge of the left foot into the mat. So we have that straight back leg. We're mostly going to keep the front leg straight as well. We want a softness there. We don't want to hyperextend it, but it's mostly a straight front leg. And we want to turn the left hip forward, so both hip points are shining down the front of the mat. So a little bit like Warrior One, but with a straight front leg. From here, we can bring our hands to hips. We can inhale to grow tall through the spine. Exhale, start to come forward any amount. Pausing if we feel like we lose alignment in our hips. And maybe come to a point where grab your blocks. Otherwise, stay with hands on hips and long straight back. So from here in pyramid pose, we're thinking about drawing our right hip back. So if our right foot is forward, we're drawing the right hip back, drawing the left hip forward. So it may feel a fairly intense lengthening on the outside of the right leg. Maybe feeling that stretch even across the back of the pelvis. Feels comfortable, you can start to relax and maybe curl a little bit forward. And as you do this, you can think about how much weight you have on your front foot relative to your back foot. So still want to stay square to the front of the mat. Think about where your weight is. Take one more deep breath in here as we bring our hands back towards our hips. We can inhale, coming all the way up. Step forward to the front of the mat. And then we can exhale, moderate step back with the right foot this time. Finding some comfortable distance between our feet. So we're on railroad tracks, not a balance beam. Pressing into the outside edge of the back foot and then finding the alignment in our hips. So right hip will come forward a bit more this time. Left hip will come back.
Inhale to grow tall, and then exhale, slowly, gently starting to come forward, maintaining some softness in our front knee. Continuing to invite the left hip back, that's the front hip back. Turning the right hip forward slightly. So pressing off the outside edge of the back foot. Noticing where your weight is here. So it came down with a long straight back, but as it feels more comfortable, you might find more curl or more surrender in your posture. Finding that rotation in your hips. Breathing into a stretch on the outside of your left leg, maybe up across the pelvis. Noticing it where you notice. Take one more deep breath in here. Start to bring the hands back to the hips. And then we'll step all the way forward to the front of the mat. Feet are parallel. Take a deep breath in. Arms coming all the way up, palms meet overhead. Finding a gentle back bend here, and then exhale, swan dive forward. Over bent knees, head is heavy. Here we'll start to move things down towards the mat again. So you can bring your palms down towards the ground. Bend your knees. Start to move back towards a child's pose. So finding your shins on the ground. Letting your hips sink back towards your heels. Letting your spine waterfall forward. From here we can bring our hands out in front, if they're not there already. We can start to walk our hands over towards the left. Letting the right hip be heavy. And from this heavy anchored feeling in the right hip, you can feel an opening on the side body, on the flank. QLs, lats opening up. Deep breath in here, and then walk our way back to center, and then over towards the left. Back over towards the right, letting the left hip be heavy. Finding a grounded, anchored feeling in the hips so that we can really reach out, buoyant through the back. And some opening through the flank. Deep breath in here, and then we'll come back to center. And then we'll find our way onto our back. And we'll spend some time in Viparit Karani Mudra, or another inversion that you like. So options here to have legs up the wall, options to have your hips up on a block, legs could be, or your calves could be resting on a chair, resting on the sofa. And if inversions are not where it's at for you today, you could come into constructive rest, which is laying on your back, feet angled slightly in, and then we'll let the knees rest on one another. If you like shoulder stand, you could do that. Or if you like the boomerang pose, you could do that as well. Let's Viparita Karali Mudra. I'm going to find my way to a wall with my hips up on a block. So whatever restful and restorative posture you find yourself in, into a slow and steady breath in and out your nose. Let this be an invitation for the return of circulation. Inviting all the fluids from your lower body to return back towards the heart. And depending on your level of inversion, maybe seeing things in a different way, different perspective upside down. If your hips are substantially higher than your heart, you may also find that you have kind of a jostling or redistribution of the position of your organs. It can also be kind of a healthy thing to gently shake things up once in a while. Continuing with the long, slow breath out of the nose. Once you're ready, gently start to roll to one side. We'll take a moment here after the inversion to kind of let the snow globe settle a little bit. Just be a gentle movement. Often as a counter pose, we do a fish pose, and we'll do that today as well. But before we get there to fish pose, we'll come back with bent knees and find that constructive rest with the knees coming in on one another. Notice this widening out on the back of the pelvis. And then we can take the opposite. So Supta Baddha Konasana. Let the soles of the feet come together. Letting the knees open up. So we have an opening on the front of the hips. Gentle squeeze on the SI joints. Like you can bring blocks underneath your knees. Gently support them so that we don't end up with a too much tension on the hip flexors.
Shoulders spread out and relax. Finding that long, slow breath in and out your nose. Bring the hands out the outside of the knees. Gently help the knees up. Say goodbye to our blocks. Just put them off to the side for a moment. Take our feet out a little wider, maybe as wide as the mat, and we will take a super slow, super gentle windshield wiper. Maybe 2 on each side, and then we'll pause with the knees coming over towards the left. If your knees are over towards the left, then your right leg, dipping in towards the center of the body, has a slight internal rotation. Left leg has an external rotation. Let the back of your pelvis be wide here, both hips sinking down towards the mat. Inhale, come back into slow windshield wiper, a few times in each direction. You can come over and take a pause on the other side. Feeling the difference, internal rotation versus external rotation. Into the back of the pelvis, letting it go wide. Bring your knees back and forth for a few more gentle windshield wipers, and then we can find our way towards supported fish pose.
So for this one, we will take a block, set it in the middle of our mat, and we want the block more or less in between our shoulder blades, and using a second block under our heads, because we want a throat opening after the inversion posture, but not, we don't want our head to snap back. So it's nice to have a little bit of support in the head. Gentle opening of the throat. If it's comfortable for your back, you can let your legs spread out. If it feels comfortable for your shoulders and your arms, you can let your arms spread out. Palms facing up. After any adjustments that you need, breathing long and slow in and out your nose. Your shoulders melt on either side of the block. This be a gentle opening of the chest. The block underneath the spine. Kind of the watershed. The rivers of your arms
flowing out and away on both sides. Watershed is often the edge of a watershed, like a mountain range, pointing up high. So we can let the block elevate our heart, spot in between the lungs. Slow, gentle breathing. You can bring your hands to your head, gently lift your head, bring your elbows underneath you, prop yourself up just enough to set your blocks off to the side. We can settle down into the mat for the final relaxation of this practice, our Savasana. Letting the legs be wide, letting the arms be wide. Letting your body cool out, spread out and be vast. Feet flop lazily onto their sides. Ankles loose and relaxed. Calves are heavy, sinking into the mat. Knees juicy and alive. The muscles of your thighs let go and relax. Release the hold they have on each other and untangle, spread out. Relax and sink down into the mat. Bring the attention to the hips, maybe noticing a warmth, a gentle buzzing along the sacrum, along the SI joints. Finding a sense of spaciousness here. The hips drift apart just enough for the sacrum to land down on the mat. Hips spreading wide. Feeling your full spine contacting the mat. Observing the expansion of your rib cage on every inhale. On every exhale, it can relax into the mat. And your shoulders spread out wide. Your arms heavy, relaxed. Forearms letting go of any gripping or any tension. The palms widen and the fingers curl in gently. From this relaxed Savasana, your attention to your breath, really noticing each inhale and exhale.
Maybe feeling the breath move in your nostrils or your throat. Perhaps feeling the expansion of your abdomen, chest. Feeling a growing lightness as you tune into your breathing, in and out. You may choose to name each breath to signify your awareness. This is an inhale. And this is an exhale. Other sounds, sensations, feelings, and thoughts may arise while breathing. You might notice them, name them, and then return to the breath. That is a thought. This is an inhale. This is an exhale. Be a passive observer of your thoughts, letting the thoughts float by without attaching to them. You might imagine yourself to be sitting on a riverbank, watching thoughts float by like driftwood. If your attention rests on a thought as it floats by, name it, and then return to the breath. That is a thought. This is an inhale. This is an exhale. Sometimes a thought may come to rest on the shore. Once you notice it, you can gently push it back into the current to float downstream. Return your focus to your breath. That is a thought. This is an inhale. This is an exhale. Thoughts are not adversaries, but rather opportunities to practice coming back to ourselves, back to the breath. This is an inhale. This is an exhale. Bring some movement into your fingers, into your toes. Circling your wrists and your ankles. Gently turning your head side to side. Feel like you can bring your arms up alongside your head. Long arms and legs, big stretch. Maybe a yawn. And then when you feel ready, you can roll yourself onto your right hand side. Taking a moment here to consolidate the practice. About how it felt, what it was like to tune in to the hips, what we noticed about our bodies, our breath, our thoughts. And without attaching any judgment to this practice, good or bad, we can put it behind us. Kiss it goodbye. And then gently push up to a seated position. We can inhale, hands out onto our knees. And then exhale, hands to heart center. Thanks for practicing today. That was fun. Namaste.
Stay.